In the summer of 2020, me and my friends, Alex and Violet, decided to go on a mountain vacation. Cabin fever hit us hard, and we were really desperate to get out. We settled on a mountain estate to travel and planned to camp at several locations. For one night, we thought it would be fun to book a cabin in the woods. Violet's parents had booked a fire tower once and loved it, but a cabin with a fire tower was all we could find. It was cheap, it was clean, and it was secluded. And we were excited to have a night where we could be as loud and as obnoxious as we wanted, so we made a booking. The cabin was 30 minutes away from the nearest town, and it was located on top of a mountain. We held our breath as we drove up the road that spiraled towards the top. There were no stopping spaces and no other campsites, just a single track road that led to the cabin at the peak. We settled in and started a fire to keep warm. As dusk gave way to night, we heard the unmistakable noise of a car engine on the road, and then the beams of the headlights. A truck with 3 kids arrived, and our nerves settled. They smiled at us, giving us a wave, and left. We heard there may be occasional visitors to the fire tower, but they were the only ones we saw. We put the fire out and moved inside. We heated some hot dogs until they were lukewarm. You don't know how quiet it is until you're in the middle of nowhere. You can hear every rustle of the leaves, the whisper of the wind through the branches. You get used to white noise living in the city. There's always the hum of an air conditioner or the faint roar of traffic. Out here, the closest thing to white noise was the sound of our own breathing. We jumped at every noise. I cracked a few wine bottles open and passed them to Alex and Violet. We set up a game on the table between our bunk beds. It didn't take long for us to loosen up, and we were laughing and having a good time. We were much sober than we thought, but enough that we were able to ignore the sounds of the woods. Later, we'd all recall hearing noises in the background. The snap of a twig, the dim rumble of an engine. None of us wanted to rupture the air of nonchalance between us, so we ignored it. That is, until a human hand reached up on the window and knocked 3 times. We screamed in an instant. Alex panicked and dialed 911. He put them on speakerphone and handed the phone to me. He grabbed pokers from the fireplace and passed them out. Violet started calling her family members and saying her last goodbyes. I held my breath and listened for any more noise. Whoever this was, they would have heard us call 911, and now they were being careful to make a silent retreat. The police arrived 20 minutes later. A lucky thing for a 1 a.m. emergency call. They had their dogs comb the mountain, but they found nothing. They suggested it might have been a bear, but I could tell they didn't believe that. We'd barely cooked these hot dogs, and why would a bear knock on the window next to some loud, obnoxious teenagers? Why, when we screamed, did the bear make a stealthy retreat? They had no answers, but they had noticed something chilling. As they sped up to us, they'd come across a car at the base of the mountain, but that was the only sign of life they'd seen. I remember my blood ran cold when I heard this, but Violet and Alex were too frazzled to absorb the weight of what they just said. and dizzied by a new horror. Violet's car was thoroughly covered in dust from our trip up the mountain, but it was covered in handprints. Handprints which didn't match ours, which had touched places that we hadn't. We grabbed our stuff by the armful and threw it inside, eager to remove every part of ourselves from this mountain. We followed the police, and we made it down in record time. We found a lodge at a local hotel. I couldn't sleep. The thought of that car on the road was stuck in my head. If you remember, there was nothing else on that mountain. It was a single narrow road to the top. No places to stop, no other campsites. There was only the fire tower. Maybe a visitor decided to spook us during their late night excursion. But the kids earlier from that day, we'd seen them leave. Whoever did this had stopped their vehicle further down the road and hiked the rest of the way up the steep mountain path in the dark. They didn't want to be spotted. They wanted to avoid being seen. Whoever this was hadn't been looking for a cheap scare. They'd planned this. I don't think I'll ever know what this person wanted, or what their intentions were. I don't know if it was a practical joke, or the beginning of some horror. I'm grateful for Alex's quick wit in calling 911. I wonder if our visitor knew we had service. It certainly had been a welcome surprise for us. Perhaps that was the wrench in his plan, enough to spook him before he could do anything else.